Last year was a big year for anime, and perhaps one of the biggest moments was the release of legendary filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki's latest film, The Boy and the Heron. And in honor of this achievement, we're going to be going back through his filmography with Ghibli to rank his movies. I know this is about 2 months after the movie actually released, but I wanted time to effectively rewatch some of these movies to confirm my understanding of them or to see what opinions changed before posting an actual ranking. Also, a bit of a disclaimer here, but since this is Ghibli, it's the same rules as talking about shonen. I want to make all you Ghibli fans aware that we all have our own opinions, and if and when mine differ from yours, that's okay. I'm not saying my opinion is the one truth and the only way to view these movies. It's simply just how I feel, the good and the bad. I mean, in saying that as well, I also don't think any of these movies are bad. It's just how I view my personal feelings towards them. Alright, let's get into it. Instead of random or release order, the order I will bring up each film is going to be determined by their rating on IMDb, from lowest to highest. Starting things off, we have Ponyo with a 7.6 out of 10, by the way. I've often heard people describe Ponyo as a children's movie, and out of all of these, if I were to label only one as a children's movie, I don't think it would be Ponyo. It definitely has that feeling, and I mean, that's not a bad feeling though. There's a lot of substance here. It feels innocent and cute, and then an extinction level event is caused, but because Ponyo is so wholesome, it's all good. Oh, and can we just say, the aesthetic of this film is just so beautiful, and how the sea is animated. It's just beautiful, it's breathtaking. I'd say at the end of the day, this is a more average Miyazaki film, which I mean is still an incredible compliment because it's Miyazaki. It's like saying Insomnia is a more average Christopher Nolan film. I mean, it's still better than tons of movies out there. So yeah, Ponyo is going to be placed in the B tier. But don't forget, this is a B tier Miyazaki movie. Next up, we have Porco Rosso with a 7.7. I'm going to be honest here, I didn't love this movie. Maybe if I had grown up with it, I would have enjoyed more aspects, but I just didn't. And to me, it felt like not a whole lot actually happened that carried real weight. I was just kind of watching scenes take place. Sometimes there'd be slapstick elements, and sometimes it'd be a pig trying to act cool like Han Solo or something. I mean, those aren't really insults because this film didn't insult me in any way. I don't really know why, but nothing really clicked with me. That's really all there is to it. There's some good moments for sure, absolutely, and some iconic lines, iconic scenes, some good philosophical moments too as well, but to be honest, it was just kind of underwhelming. I mean, again, it's Miyazaki, and I'd rather watch this than a lot of other Hollywood animated movies. But still, it didn't quite hit home for me, which is okay. And because of that, I'll put it in the C tier. Animation's still great, though. I'm not gonna clown on that. Alright, now that we've talked about a couple of his films, I should probably, well, I mean, not probably, but I'm going to anyway. I'm gonna take a moment to briefly touch on the debate as to whether these are kids' movies or not. Plain and simple, they aren't. However, most of them are aimed at children. Most, which is the reason why so many Ghibli movies follow children, so that the children watching have characters they can relate to and connect with and make it more engaging to follow the story. Also, Miyazaki just writes well-written stories following children anyway, so it is what it is. Don't take me by mistake here. These are family movies, not kids movies. And if I'm being honest, they are some of the best family movies out there. Rather than becoming the normal schlock that many kids and family movies have become, Miyazaki shows us through his movies that movies with children as the target demographic can be as much of films as, say, Scorsese movies, for example. Touching upon impactful themes through artistic execution is something very few family movies actually aim to do, and Miyazaki films shows us how possible it is. Alright, now that I'm done talking about that, let's get back to the ranking. The next movie we're bringing up is The Boy and the Heron with a 7.7. When I watched this for the first time, I was blown away by about half of it. Animation's still beautiful, and I love how you can tell it's gotten newer while keeping the same art style and aesthetic. But I did make a video and I said, I don't know, I wasn't quite impressed. I don't know what I was thinking. I said it was good, but it didn't blow me away because that's what I expected. I'll talk about that later. But as time has gone on, I've only continued to think about this movie, and it's only gotten better and better in my mind. It's incredibly personal, emotional, bizarre. The opening is immediately captivating, and the structure moves from one adventure to the next. And this is one that has just sat with me since I watched it, and not a lot of films actually pull that off. More often than not, even if it's a good watch in the moment, the day after I watch a movie, I've completely moved on pretty much. But Miyazaki has a way of keeping these stories in our minds, and The Boy and the Heron is no exception, earning its spot in the A tier for me. A week or so ago, I saw the film a second time in theaters, and wow, my appreciation for pretty much everything about it skyrocketed. I loved it before, but it just became so much more personal as I adhered to Joe Hisaishi's words and felt my way through the movie. Before, I said that I wasn't impressed with the animation because it's what I expected. I don't know what I was saying, honestly. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I was blind or what, because the second time I watched a movie, this was the most I've just gawked at pure animation and pure spectacle and pure emotion in the visuals for any animated movie from 2023. Yes, including Spider-Verse. Nothing has compared to the way I viewed The Boy and the Heron. It's simply just an incredible movie. Following that, we have The Wind Rises, also with a 7.7. I'll just start off by saying there's not a single thing in this movie that did not hit it out of the ballpark for me. Oh my goodness, I loved this movie so much. The opening is phenomenal, depicting the disaster at the beginning with almost no music besides ominous sounds throughout the confusion of the characters. As soon as that scene happened, I was all in, and I never left. This one feels the most like a passion project for Miyazaki, specifically revolving around his love for planes. It'd be like if Hideaki Anno finally made a movie specifically about trains. A dream come true. Speaking of Hideaki Anno, he does such a good job with the voice performance in this movie. He just feels like a natural person with a real personality, rather than an exaggerated character. The story is so interesting in its handling of the making of planes during World War II, focusing more on the people without glorifying the events of the war. Earlier, I said that most of Miyazaki's movies were children and family films, and while nothing here would traumatize a child, this also is not a movie aimed at children. This movie feels more suited for adults with its story, as in adults would be more interested in the subject matter. Maybe it's because I connected more with the real world story, or maybe it's because it's the only Ghibli movie I've ever cried in, but this is easily going in the S tier. Kiki's Delivery Service, with a 7.8. Here's a more lighthearted coming-of-age story with its emotional moments. I really appreciate the twist to the coming-of-age genre and its use of the fantastical elements in a real-world setting. The dynamic between Kiki and Gigi is really enjoyable and absolutely carries the movie. This is definitely a well-loved Ghibli movie, and I feel pretty good about it. It gives me the same feelings I get from Ponyo, pretty much. For me, it's a more average Miyazaki experience, but still a really good time, because it's still Miyazaki. So it's headed over to the B tier for me. Castle in the Sky, with an 8. This film's biggest problem is the casting. Not that it's bad, in fact, it's actually perfect. But Mayumi Tanaka plays Pazu, and I can't stop thinking of Luffy. Just like how Anthony Starr will never not be Homelander, some castings are just so iconic that I just can't take my mind off of it. And now I'm just thinking about One Piece instead of focusing on the Ghibli movie. Classic. But actually no, this is a pretty good movie. Again, great dynamic between two main characters and a beautiful, fantastical world and story. I'm torn between whether I want to go low A or high B tier with this one. You know what, I'll place it high B tier for now. Well, I'll see if I change my mind later. Following that, we have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, with an 8. The movie that kick-started the creation of Studio Ghibli and an honorary Ghibli adventure. Nausicaa, simply put, is wonderful. The first time I watched it, it felt nostalgic, which is a feeling you pretty much never get if, you are watching something for the first time. It's crazy that Ghibli animation is so good that an animated movie from 1984 not only holds up to this day, but is honestly better than a lot of other movies today. Building a care for characters is important, and this movie just nails that aspect, making me emotional and invested in the story. This is also one of the best final acts from any Ghibli movie. I'll say that. The final act of this movie is incredible. I say one of the best, because there are definitely others that compete with it, but for this movie, it's going high A tier, easily. Next up, we have My Neighbor Totoro, with an 8.1. Totoro. Now, I just want to say this. I don't want to offend anyone here, okay? This is a beloved movie, adored by many. In fact, almost everyone who watches it. And I love that, because there's definitely a reason for people to be so attached to the story and these characters. But unfortunately, I just couldn't appreciate those reasons for... reasons. Okay, you know what? I'm not saying you need to grow up with it to love it, because there's definitely a good handful of people who watched it and loved it as teens or adults, even. But sadly, I was not one of them. I can't exactly explain why I felt this way, because by no means do I think people who say this is a good movie are wrong. Not at all. But you know what? I'll say it. I didn't really like it. Animation, music, freaky little creature designs, it's all up to Ghibli's high standards, obviously. But I don't know. To me, it felt like we weren't really doing anything and then just flying with Totoro because of, well, reasons. You know, I thought they might take a tear from me at one point because it was a story about a mother lying about just having a cold so her kids wouldn't worry. All the while she knew she wouldn't make it. It's beautiful and it's sad and it's inspiring. It's emotional. But then, spoiler alert, you know what? It's an old movie. It doesn't matter. It ends with the mom coming back like, actually, it was just a cold. It's all good. And then they all live happily ever after at the end. I just felt weird and felt like I was left empty. I don't know. I'm happy for everyone who loves this movie. And I wish that I could love this movie. Because again, I don't think that those who like the movie are wrong. But I just couldn't like it. For me, I don't know. But I'm not going to go ahead and place it in the D or F tier. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to place it in the C tier. And for me, it's my least favorite Ghibli movie that I've seen. I feel bad about saying that, but, well, least favorite Miyazaki Ghibli movie, I should say. But yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, Howl's Moving Castle with an 8.2. Now, I may have just left you skeptical of what I think about the rest of these movies, but have no fear, I do love my share of acclaimed Ghibli movies as well. And Howl's Moving Castle is one of the absolute best. Incredible character design. Okay, I'll say it has the best character designs of all of these movies. Easily taking that to the best character designs. Howl? Yeah. I mean, why do you think I'm drawing Howl right now? All right, the best Ghibli has to offer. The art is breathtaking and the story is brilliant. This one feels really relaxing for a lot of it too, and while also building to really exciting and emotional conclusions. Of all the Ghibli movies that make people feel like they've been on an entire journey with the characters and the world from start to finish, this one is probably the most impactful in that area for me. And it's just a masterpiece in terms of everything about it. And there's not a single moment that just doesn't work, and it only expands on the themes and investment as it goes on. No hesitation, S tier. You know, I honestly can't decide whether or not I like it more than Wind Rises. I mean, if I could, I would just put them in the same spot. But because I have to put one over the other, I think I'm going to stick with Wind Rises in the lead currently. It could be partly due to the fact that both Wind Rises and Howls don't follow young children as the lead. And, you know, maybe that's the reason I connected with these two more than the others. But needless to say, incredible movies. Still got 2 Miyazaki movies left, but before we get to them, just a reminder of those little subscribe and like buttons at your mercy if you've been enjoying this and would, you know, like to be in the know when more videos like this are released, etc., etc., etc. Also, I would love to know your personal Miyazaki rankings in the comments below, so be sure to leave those. All right, Princess Mononoke with an 8.3. This is the most non-kid friendly movie here. I think I may have watched this after Castle in the Sky or Ponyo or something, but wow, I was surprised by the violence on this one. It's crazy. This is one of the most beautifully profound fantasy tales from Miyazaki as well. The animation is incredible, breathtaking. I should really stop saying that. Saying I was impressed by Ghibli animation is like saying I find water makes things wet. Yeah, of course. We know this. But still, Mononoke's animation is particularly impressive amongst the other Ghibli films as well. The story is structured and told perfectly, the final act is awe-striking, and the metaphors of evil are incredible. An all-around masterpiece of a film. I mean, this is an easy S tier for me. With no surprise, we have Spirited Away as the last film, highest rated at an 8.6. Alright, let's get into it. Here's another film called a masterpiece by many. Now, the way I said that may scare you, but before I explain anything about my specific feelings on this movie, to make sure that you don't think I dislike this movie, I do think Spirited Away is a good movie. I mean, in fact, as a movie, I think it's really good. Now that I'm not going to offend anyone, I'll get my personal feelings now, which mainly result from preset expectations from the public praise versus my actual experience. The art direction is beautiful. Character designs memorable and effective. Themes touching and relevant. Alright, a lot of this movie to me feels really random. I don't necessarily dislike what happens, but I'm often taken aback by a slightly jarring feeling from all the individual side adventures in the runtime, which, saying it sounds like I'm complaining, just a weird feeling I get on my first viewing, but again, it's not a complaint. In fact, I think it's a strength of this movie. Now, I'll be honest, the first time I watched it, I felt underwhelmed and bored. You heard me right. I said, the first time I watched this movie, I found this movie to be underwhelming and boring. If I made this tier list a year ago, I would have likely put this in the high C or low B tier. Nah, I would have put it low C, let's be honest. However, researching all the different implicit meanings and messages made me realize how much more thought was put into this film than I previously felt. And rewatching this movie led to a change in my original mindset. Maybe I was in an off mood the first time, but it would be a disservice to the history of cinema to give Spirited Away a low C tier. Now, I still feel certain side adventures feel weird to me, but again, weird doesn't mean bad. At least it certainly doesn't in the world of Miyazaki. And we have some of the most beautiful scenes in film history in this movie, I will say that. I do say specific scenes, not the whole movie though, because while I appreciate it more now, it still isn't near my personal favorite Ghibli movie. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with someone saying that it's the best Ghibli movie though. There's nothing about Spirited Away that I think is bad. It's just a matter of me thinking it's lower on the list than the general public does. I mean, which is fine, it's still really good, and it at least deserves an A tier from me, that's all I'll say. In fact, this one feels more of a movie that I appreciate rather than like. Not that I dislike it, but it's more of a appreciation over enjoyment for me. And there you go, there's the old ranking, complete. But I'm gonna be honest, if we were ranking these movies based on music alone, everything would be in the S tier. But there you go. Thanks for listening, I've been Shin Glassman, along with one last call to subscribe, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.